Yesterday, Australia did something that no other country has done before. You probably know what I'm talking about. They legally delayed an entire generation from entering social media. Not banned forever, just until they're 16. But here's the part that people aren't really talking about. What happens when millions of teenagers grow up disconnected from the global online world that everyone their age has already been a part of for years? I genuinely don't think that we've thought through what this actually means. The law took effect on December 10th. That was yesterday. Under 16s were removed from TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, Reddit, and many more. Platforms had already shut down their accounts because they're the ones that are going to get in trouble if there are under 16s on them. And this new technology now that's been added to all these apps is age verification, but legitimate age verification. And like I said before, companies get fined if something goes wrong here. This meant that millions of kids lost access yesterday. Not just to entertainment, but to digital spaces where this youth culture, this global youth culture, actually happens. And yes, there are clear upsides. Kids get less screen time, less pressure, fewer algorithm traps and buying rubbish online. Parents also feel safer, and teachers, they feel relieved. A lot of people genuinely think that this is going to give a childhood back, a childhood that I guess I had. I didn't have a cell phone at the age of 16. Well, at least a cell phone that could connect to the internet. I think I was probably a millennial. I was probably the last generation in which we had, quote unquote, the untechnological childhood. And these now kids are going to have more in-person experiences, fewer distractions, and maybe less competition with others. And in all honesty, that sounds pretty good, right? If you told most adults today that they could repeat their teenage years without social media, I think a large majority of them would say, yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'd like to do that. Sure, the idea, it feels freeing. But this isn't the 1990s. Teenagers aren't growing up in an actual offline world. They're growing up in a world where social presence, group identity, humor, creativity, activism, learning resources, global communities, everything happens online. Or at least there is an online section of these kind of things. And Australia has removed a whole group of teens from these spaces while the rest of the world moves normally, or normally in this technological world we live in. But they'll just join at 16. They'll be fine. Kids adapt faster than adults. They'll learn the interface, yes, but they won't have the experience of growing up inside global digital culture at the same time as everybody else in the world did. They will enter late into a world that never waited. And the delay isn't just about time. It's about the world that they were not allowed to participate in while everyone else their age was. But isn't it better than being overexposed to social media too young? Maybe. But let's have a look at what they're losing access to. Global fandoms in this youth culture, worldwide conversations, memes, humor, all this kind of stuff that develops online. Digital creative tools, learning resources hosted on platforms that they can't use, like YouTube tutorials. Early community building, emerging digital skills, public identity development, and visibility in global youth networks. And these aren't trivial. These are now part of how teenagers form identity and understand the world. Removing only one country from this global flow creates a mismatch we've never seen before. So they don't need it, but everybody else will have it. In a global system where identity, opportunities, and reputation increasingly start online, These kids will turn 16 without online portfolios, early creative output, digital confidence, understanding of social norms, at least in an online sense, or even a basic sense of how to be perceived online. Meanwhile, their international peers will have years of practice. That's not just a delay. That's a competitive and social disadvantage inside a globalized internet. So you're not framing this as a ban, you're framing this as a national social experiment? Exactly. Australia is testing what happens when you raise teenagers outside the main digital world. Not offline entirely, but outside the public platforms, where a lot of culture is inferred these days. And no one knows the long-term outcome, because this has never been done in our globally connected era that we are currently in. The goal was safety, and I respect that. But the side effects might reshape identity, belonging, and confidence in ways no one predicted. But isn't everyone in Australia equally affected? So, no inequality? Inside Australia, maybe. But globally, absolutely yes. This creates a gap between Australian teens and their peers in every other country, socially, culturally, creatively, and psychologically. And when they turn 16 and enter these platforms, they won't just be new, they'll be late. And that's a different kind of inequality. One based not on money or access, but on developmental timing. So this ban might protect teenagers in the short term, but it also removes them from the world that everybody else is growing up in. And that world, it won't pause until they're 16. Right. It feels like a safe, clean idea on the surface, but changing when and whether young people participate in a global digital world has long-term consequences. And we haven't begun to understand what those will be. Don't get me wrong. I wish I was not addicted to my phone or subject to all the stuff online. But it almost feels like a necessity. But I am curious to see what the social experiment will come out with. I do think it will help a lot of Australian parents decide when their kid gets a phone, because I think that's a difficult decision for parents. Thanks for coming along today. It is winter here. I am wearing a t-shirt and I am cold, but I was wearing a green sweatshirt, and green sweatshirt I realized will show up green when I use the green screen. So I removed that. Anyway, we'll see you guys tomorrow.